Who growing up, I didn't really see positive images when it comes to praying for a spouse, especially from women. She was just mirrored as though it was war, and I'm like, if this thing is war, maybe I'm like, maybe I don't really want like. So I was like, I'm not in their mood, and I was never interested to be honest. To start with from the get go, because it was always shown as a negative thing. You see people crying to God for a spouse, and mostly women, people crying to God for a spouse, and you now eventually see them in the marriage and they're miserable. I'm like, well, you cry to God about this thing. So I just couldn't put it on. So I thank God for the right images that came in, right, and God just had to use, yeah, he has used this book really to heal some of those negative images. One book I would start from is, this book, Praying for Your Husband, the Child Prayer Journal is by Pastor Mildred, and from the get-go, because it was always shown as a negative thing. You see people crying to God for a spouse, and mostly women, people crying to God for a spouse, and you now eventually see them in the marriage and they're miserable. I'm like, well, you cry to God about this thing. So I just couldn't put it on. So if you pray about your marriage, pray for your spouse, but you can't force God to give you a spouse. You can't force. And I know it's funny now. A famous person made a post recently, and it took a screenshot of people's prayer on the comments of Hallelujah Challenge, and people were literally putting people's name and saying, Lord, let so and so person love me. Let this and this person. I get the screenshot because I'm like, I don't want to eventually like deny that I saw this thing. This is a real thing. It's Lord, that's his full name. Lord, no, that's manipulation.
Yeah.
You are trying to blackmail God, So these are the images I saw, right? And I'm just like, this is not a good thing. But then I thank God for the right images that came in, right? And that's why, I'm never married yet, but imagine me buying a book to pray for my husband. So God just had to use, and he has used this book really to heal some of those negative images, to teach me that these things are important, right? Because some places in the book, you start praying about things like, against adultery, against this, that, and I'm like, adultery? The man will even confess, but it's important. You are praying like you are depositing money in a bank, and then when you need it, you can go and withdraw. Yes, you stored it up. So I just began to, learn it, and then she calls it the Child Prayer Journal. So it's a prayer journal, right? So there are parts where you read the title of the chapter, then you go into, she'll explain what you're about to pray about, which is good because, wisdom and power. Yes, they have to be married. Yes. So she explains what you're about to pray about, then you pray about the situation, whatever topic it is. Then behind it, she can give like a story, just an experience, and the place where you actually know how to journal, right? And it might seem like a lot of pressure when you start, especially if you're someone who's unmarried, maybe you're a bit engaged or you're single, and just trying to believe God for his spouse. A godly spouse, right? To have a kingdom marriage. Like, it may look like a lot of pressure because, in the beginning part, she said, put his picture, put his name. You don't have to do all of that if, the person's not in the picture yet.
Yeah.
Right? Why can't you just be saying, my husband? So whoever comes to get that crown, eventually, so I think it's a beautiful one. And for someone like me who the Lord has been preparing for years and having me pray, and I'm like, God, is it that deep? But it's actually that deep, right? Because of how much the enemy is against godly homes and Christian marriages and godly seeds these days. I think it is worth written a book about the topic, especially if you have a negative
ideology.
Yeah, ideology.
Welcome to this part of a journey where words come alive.